Manic and Chill is live. It is August 6th, 2025. This is the introduction to the show, Shane. We do intros on this show, and tonight we're going to be talking about startups. It is August. It is the daily news grind. We kind of talked about it last week, but it's only continued where every single day, every single hour, really, there are multiple posts about this player's injured, this player's not getting used, this player is smashing, this offense is not going to work, this offense is going to dominate. There's literally something going on at all times, which is fun. We're literally living in like the live TMZ world for Dynasty right now because there's something to talk about at all times. But glad to be back with you, Shane. How you doing?
I am awesome. I'm ready to rock. I don't know if I'm happy or sad that football's already back. It's bittersweet. It's like, oh, it's awesome. It's here. But that means time is going by. And then the season itself, man, before you know it, it's already over. So I'm already
29 days.
Yeah,
Thursday night football opener. Fast.
Yeah, already thinking about next off season. So yeah, time keeps moving, man. No, it's going to be fun. I'm ready to rock, bro.
So we're just going to be talking through startup strategies, given that we have a month left until the season. Things are way different. I wanted to hit on a couple topics with Shane, talking about team building in August versus team building in April or March or February, sometime before the rookie draft, where there's a lot more variance, a lot more chaos that's going to happen. We're still going to get chaos in the next month, but it's going to be a little bit of a different type of chaos that doesn't necessarily exist when you have an entire summer and an entire draft season to go by. So we'll talk a little about that. I'll put your comments in the chat. If you have trades, we're going to hold those for Dynasty Deal Show on Friday for our members. But if you do throw a super chat in there, we will answer it, even if it's a trade. And if we have some interesting trades or comments, maybe we'll get to a couple at the end, but no promises because Shane and I can get off track, and we never talk through everything we plan to talk through. So tonight we have like 3 things. That way we do not get off track and not talk about half the stuff that we had planned. So I did want to talk a little bit about first Keenan Allen, because my first topic, Shane, tonight was the impact of how we're valuing rookies today versus when we were drafting them even before the NFL draft, but after the NFL draft. If you do a startup in like end of May, you're viewing rookies in maybe a little bit of a different light right now. People are treating rookies differently in leagues. We can kind of talk through what that looks like, some positive, some negative. But let's talk about Keenan Allen to start. You got some info for us on Keenan Allen? Because I think people have kind of poo-pooed this as like, he didn't sign till August. He's just going back to the Chargers because he knows them. They know him. But I think it has some impact here, especially if we're looking at a quick flip on a couple of these Chargers weapons. But what are your thoughts?
So I know it was fun to say that Keenan Allen was washed last year, right? Like that was kind of like he's not the same, and he's not. You know what I mean? No 32-year-old dude or whatever it is that he isn't going to be the same as you are when you're 24. But you know what he was still? He was still an elite target getter, dude. He's still ranked 11th in the league in target share, 27.1%. So the dude is going to take targets away from someone. Who is he going to take those targets away? It's probably the rookie that we were all hoping would hit, Trey Harris, and then the rookie that everybody fell in love with over the last 2 weeks in KLS. He's definitely going to have an impact on the offense. What I wonder is he going to primarily play out of the slot and let Ladd play outside, or they're going to be interchangeable? Now, Keenan Allen's slot rate has gone down the last few years. So he's not strictly a slot player, although he never really was strictly a slot player. But I could see them doing lots of things. Like they could kind of be interchangeable roles, though I don't know that you want Keenan Allen as your outside receiver.
Yeah, Ray talked about this a little bit on Wake Up, where they went through Keenan Allen's impact and looked at his Trinity. So I was looking at, where would you guess last year the Chargers ranked in terms of 11 personnel? So where they have 3 receivers on the field, whether it's a slot receiver or one of the outside receivers that comes off the field. Where would you think they ranked in the league? How much of their play volume was in 11 personnel? Just take a guess.
Oh, ranking. Sorry, I was trying to think.
But just what percentage out of 100 did they play in 11 personnel? It was on the lower end of the league, but just throwing out what percentage.
I can't, 35%? Not that low, right?
No, not that low. Lowest in the league was the Ravens, 27.7%. Okay. So you're undershooting it a little bit, but it wasn't super high. Sean actually nailed it in the chat. 22%, 22nd. They were 22nd in the league. Just over 56%. They played in 11 personnel. But if you take their 21 personnel, which is when they have 2 running backs, which interesting. They signed Najee Harris and drafted Amari and Hampton, right? They actually ran at the top of the league in terms of 21 personnel. And combine that with 12 personnel to where they're definitely taking a third receiver off the field. About 23% of their plays did not have those 2 formations, but only 56% of their plays was in 11 personnel. So you add in a guy in Keenan Allen who had a 25% target share last year and played a lot of his snaps in the slot. What was it, like 74% or something like that he played in the slot?
Player Profilers got Keenan Allen with and this is, they have him as at a 43% slot rate.
Okay, well, interesting. That's lower than I thought it was.
Yeah. But it's still 16th highest in the league. But that's different. There's different sites that have different that'll give you different numbers on that. But he is heavily a slot player. And
he played a lot.
And he's and I'll say this though, and he shouldn't have been an outside receiver last year. He looked physically incorrect on some of the routes that the Bears had him on, but go ahead. Yeah,
Scout Shane didn't look good on those other routes that he wasn't playing in the slot. Anyway, just trying to dissect this through deduction of what does this mean for the other weapons. You already noted he is a career target earner. So as long as he's in the league, he's probably going to get the ball. You know what I mean? He may not do anything with it, but he feels very much like a Zach Ertz, Jason Witten type. Like as long as he's playing, he's going to get the ball until he doesn't anymore. You know what I mean? Like him getting the ball is probably not going to go as fast as he just doesn't play.
No.
So there has to be something you pull from with this. So the question is he relevant? I saw Raymond put something in there. Is Allen worth anything in lineup leagues? I think for me, he's going to get a shot. He's going to play, especially maybe early when he's fresh and the guys that are around him are still rookies, right? But I think if you have him on a roster I think remember a month ago we were going through our teams, and I think we had Keenan Allen on like every one of them.
Yes.
Even in like a start 11, start 10, you have to have a very specific plan for him on your roster. You know what I mean? Like if it's a start 11, I got to be starting him if he's going to play early. Other than that, why do I have him on my team? So I think that where this probably impacts, and I saw Squid's question. Squid is one of our members of our squad. According to Ray, this is what Ray said on the AMA, and this is what he said on Wake Up.
Real quick. This is how little I think of Quentin Johnston. I literally didn't even remember him.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
I'm just repeating what Ray said. He doesn't think this impacts Quentin Johnston at all.
Different roles,
they
right?
They don't play the same role at all. Now, the pie, he impacts the entire pie if you're hoping others get more of the pie. But I'm thinking Quentin Johnston probably was going to get the middling percentage of the pie that he was going to get anyway, and that was going to be for his specific role. Maybe it's a 15% target share. You know what I mean? But that's what he is. Does he have the same ceiling? I don't know. But I don't think it impacts him. My question for you is, how does this impact people pumping up a Rondé Gadsden? Oh, he's going to be a big slot tight end. Well, probably not if Keenan Allen's on the roster, right? Because he's not a real tight end. They have 2 other real tight ends on the team that are probably going to play those snaps before Rondé Gadsden. Keandre Lambert-Smith, how does it affect him? Does he even get on the field early on? We haven't even talked about Trey Harris, but it obviously impacts him in terms of he is a second-round pick that people expected to be an immediate contributor, maybe even the second option in the passing game. And how finicky are we with rookies, Shane? We don't have time for, well, maybe in 2026, Trey Harris will get some opportunity. We don't have time for that. So where are you at with those 3 players specifically in terms of Keenan Allen's impact on what you can do with them in the short term?
So we talked about QJ not really being effective because of roles, right? Trey Harris isn't.
Well, and you can't get anything for QJ anyway. I preface this by saying, like, if someone's willing to give you a third, I would have taken a third before Keenan Allen. Do you know what I mean? So he's kind of irrelevant to it moves the needle for him because I don't think there's any demand for him anyway.
Yeah, I'll say this. The only thing it changes for Trey Harris is it's not the distribution. There's a limited number of targets total, right? Like there just is. There's not an infinite number. There's not going to be 50 balls thrown a game. There's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 35. And Keenan Allen getting a 27% share just means he's taking targets that, not those specific targets that could go to Trey Harris. You know what I mean? Because they run different. They're different types of wide receivers, but still there's only so many targets to go around. So, you know, Ladd's going to get his, say 25%. You know that Keenan's going to get his 25%, but Trey Harris really needs to beat out QJ, doesn't he? And
what's a target share for Keenan Allen that you would just say, even if it's not 24.7% like it was last year? What's reasonable, assuming he's 20% worse than he was last year, and there's other weapons? Like, they're not just going to hand him his role on the Bears, but it's not going to be nothing. It's probably somewhere between 10 and 20. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I'd put him at 20. Like, just because, again, he has an ability to get targets, and he has a history with Justin Herbert, you know, so there's still that familiarity.
So the Chargers last year were 6th in neutral pass rate, but they were on the lower end in terms of like pace of play. And we know they drafted Amari and Hampton in the first, and they signed Najee Harris. So I don't think they're not going to be like the Eagles or the Ravens where it's run, run, run. Because those teams usually have a low neutral pass rate, but part of that is they have a running quarterback, Shane. So some of those plays are eaten up by the fact that the quarterback runs more than other quarterbacks. I don't think that's going to be Justin Herbert. But Mike Clay, we use Mike Clay's projections just as a fair, reasonable consensus, right? He has Justin Herbert at 569 pass attempts for the season, okay? So if you give Keenan Allen a 20% target share, this is Shane math time. 569. What is 10% of that? And then double it. That is the projected targets for Keenan Allen.
57, so 114. I rounded up. Yeah.
And if we even reduce that down by a dozen, 100 targets is probably fair for Keenan Allen if he played 17 games. Would you say that's reasonable?
Yeah, that's definitely reasonable.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this. How many targets did he have projected for? Well, actually, he did update his projections with Keenan Allen in there. Guess how many targets he has projected for Keenan Allen?
120.
111.
So
he's mathing very similar to you. He's thinking 20%, not 25, 20%. Guess what he's got for Trey Harris?
10%.
Close, a little above 61 targets. So about like a 10.5, 11% target share. Is that good enough?
No.
But if we're taking what he's projecting as the truth, what's the play? How do you forget about Gadsden and Keandre Lambert-Smith? Those are just,
they don't.
I hope something positive happens. If I'm rostering them, I got to think long and hard what I want to do with that roster spot, unless it's a best ball league. But Trey Harris, you have him right now. I think everybody agrees Keenan Allen has moved ahead of him in the pecking order, at least to start. Yeah, I saw that comment. That's true. But listen, you can say that, but we don't play Dynasty that way. A lot of people, when they click draft on a Rondé Gadsden at the 402 in their rookie draft, they're hoping that player threads the needle and he gets buzz, and there's something that happens early where they can move. You agree? Very few people go, I'm going to hold him till 2027 and I hope he gets a role. That's BS if you're playing that way, because we don't. And I know Big Diaz energy doesn't play that way either, because he's the biggest day trader in the room right now, most likely. So, if you have Gadsden, it's always about what was the plan. Something like this was in the cards to happen, and it did. So now you have to reassess. What do I want to do with that roster spot? But back to Trey Harris. What do you do right now? Like, how do you play it?
61 targets. Let's just say he has 40 receptions. He's a deeper threat. So let's say
39 for 503 TDs. So you're right there.
That's where I was getting to about. That's not good. And you already know my stance on first-year rookie wide receivers. If you don't produce, I do not have time for you, because you're likely not to produce. Although there's been some players that have been the exception to that rule over the last couple of years. The thing about Harris is people will be able to tell themselves, well, Keenan Allen's gone. because there's no way he plays again after this year, right? Like he already took off until the middle of August this year. Like this is the last year I'm playing move. So people will talk themselves into basically, unless Harris completely falls down on his face and doesn't do that, people are going to talk themselves into why Harris is going to be fine the following seasons if that's what he does as a rookie.
Well, can I give you get rid of this comment? Can I give you a anecdotal example of this same exact situation that already played out in real time?
Yes.
That we were saying the same thing. Jalen McMillan this year was going to be his year after Mike Evans and/or Chris Godwin left. Instead, they kept both and drafted Emeka Egbuka. And Jalen McMillan is probably better what he did last year than what Trey Harris will do this year. Wasn't drafted as high, but the point is, you can't look out a year and go, oh, Keenan out. Now, I will say this. This is positive for Trey Harris. Between January and free agency, Jalen McMillan was valuable because everyone thought he'd be at least the wide receiver 2 on Tampa Bay, right? Instead, he's the wide receiver 4, but there was a window where people were like, ooh, Godwin may leave in free agency. Remember when they announced they would not tag Chris Godwin and everyone thought, oh man, that means he's gone. He's gone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So everyone pumped McMillan up. You could have sold McMillan in that window. If I told you that's a similar outcome for Trey Harris, because unfortunately, QJ, nobody likes him, but Mike Clay has QJ for 81 targets and actually wide receiver, basically the same as Trey Harris. So whether he's good or not, he's still a first round pick. And what is he going to be? He's going to be on the team next year, probably. He's going to be there. He's going to be taking up a little of that pie.
He's not going to be bad enough to get cut.
If I told you McMillan's window is similar to what it will be for Trey Harris, what is your cash out point today? Knowing you might be able to get a second for him next Senior Bowl time, even if it's short-lived because of, hell, they could sign somebody in free agency and they could draft a receiver in the first. You know what I mean? Like those are in the cards.
So give me a second. And you know what's funny about that, right? You probably spent a second on getting him, right?
A high second. 204, 205, right. 203.
But you did that with what hopes? Trey Harris is going to be starting this year. He's going to beat out QJ.
A hope of a profit flip, whether that's he is going to start or he has 4-week flashes where he looks good and you can flip him for a first. That's why you picked him that high, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely had thoughts that this dude, and they're not crazy thoughts because you got him, he was a second round pick and it wasn't too far outside that 50 range. So you had legitimate thoughts that this is a guy that, no, he's not going to be a top 12 wide receiver and he probably wouldn't be a top 24, but maybe he could be a wide receiver 3 for you. And now you don't have that instant hope. You know what I mean? You had that hope that maybe he could help you in 2025 when you drafted him as a rookie. And that's part of the difference between May and August, but we'll get there. So yeah, you give me a second for Trey Harris, you can have him. Now I have a fungible asset that I can use in season as opposed to a player that, is someone going to want him when we're halfway through the season and he's got 24 receptions for 314 yards? I don't know.
So Josh put up this question and I want to ask you this, because I see where he's coming from, but I think this is where the sentiment and the ADV comes into it. Is Trey Harris and Luther Burden the same bet? And which one will be given credit for the too many mouths to feed excuse if they don't smash? That's why I still lean Burden, because I think he will get the benefit of the doubt a little more so than Trey Harris, but maybe that's just my name bias coming into play. But if Trey Harris can't outproduce a guy that people consider to be dog shit in Quentin Johnston, people are going to say that. You're going to have people repeating that. Why can't he outproduce QJ? Whereas I think everybody on the Bears that might outproduce Luther Burden, people go, okay, if Colston Loveland outproduced him because he's drafted higher. DJ Moore and Roma Dunze, more production, higher. You know what I mean? Like, people would go, oh, DJ Moore outproduced him. That's legit. QJ outproduces Trey Harris. He's a bum.
No, but you're right. And that's exactly it, because we think better. We think higher of the competition that Burden has. compared to the competition that Harris has in Los Angeles. And I mean, it's not even objective or subjective, whatever. Objectively, the weapons and the players in Chicago are better. Not Lad and Rome. Like, you fine, cancel those two out, right? Whatever they are, what they are. But DJ Moore versus Quentin Johnston or Keenan Allen at this stage of his career, it should be DJ Moore. And like you said, Colston Loveland being a first round tight end, there'll be built-in excuses that are stronger. But also there's the timing of it, right? The Bears added Burden to the roster and then nothing else. Los Angeles added Harris to the roster and then went, nope, that's not enough. Now let's get Keenan Allen in here after the fact. Now, and I get, it's not that simple because it's Keenan Allen and, he's.
Well, they had Mike Williams, but then they ended up with Keenan Allen, which I think their receiver room is better now that they got Keenan Allen over Mike Williams. You know what I mean? Like, they probably upgraded, even though they picked Mike Williams, obviously, before they picked Keenan Allen. Would you trade Trey Harris and a third for Luther Burden right now to get off of that name value risk?
Yeah. And, we were talking in voice chat. It's just funny. I've got some other ideas of who I'm going to be sending out for Burden tonight if I get home early enough. But yeah, I'll do it. Dude, with players at this range, you should be really, really flexible and ready to move and come off your priors when given available evidence or new evidence.
He says we excused Rome Odunze's production for Keenan Allen, but not for Trey Harris. What do you think about that?
No, it's true, but I mean, that goes to the bias of, well, where was one of them drafted? That still holds sway in people's minds, right? Like, Odunze is a top 10 NFL draft pick. Harris is not.
And to be fair, I will give Odunze credit. People kind of shit on him as a rookie because he was a top 10 pick and he didn't absolutely smash like Malik Neighbors or Brian Thomas or Ladd McConkey or even Marvin Harrison or Xavier Worthy. Dude, he had 101 targets.
Yeah,
he still had almost 750 yards. Like, he didn't flame out. And I think if we're talking about Trey Harris having a 19% target share and 55 catches for 700 yards, we're going to look at that a little higher than we did those projections that I gave, that Mike Clay gave, right? Where he had 39 catches for 400 yards or whatever it is. Yep. There's a big difference. Like, if he puts up top 60 numbers, let's just say he's a top 50 receiver, and down the stretch, he has some games where he's a top 24 receiver. We're going to look at that total a little bit differently from a success standpoint than if he's the fourth option on the offense and he only ends up with 6 points per game. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I still think both can be true. So I don't want to say we excused Rome's production. It's just he didn't produce like the other players drafted after him. And so I think his production last year is a little bit downplayed. So I just want to put that out there. But the thought is good, and it comes back to, how do you view these players before any of this drama happening? And the truth is, Luther Burden is liked more than Trey Harris.
Yes.
And that is what it is.
And it matters. Like, it's like when the pretty girl and the pretty guy go to a job interview, all things being equal, they're going to get the job over the less attractive person. It's just how it is in life.
Yeah, and Sean said Rome's capital allowed him a mulligan that others will not get. Right? Yep. He was a top 10 pick, so you can easily go back and talk about why he only did what he did last year, because he was a top 10 pick. So.
And not to belabor the point, I had a good point, and now it's gone. Oh, there you go. And then again, Chicago, after the season, they were like, we're fine with letting Allen go. We're fine. Go. You go away. Yep. We've got Rome. And even if they did take Burden and Loveland, it still looked at a little differently, because those are more looked at like, okay, now can they move off of DJ Moore?
Well, and this goes back to why taking the receivers that you like their situation, but they were not a top 50 pick. There's risk, right? Mm-hmm. Trey Harris has no more security than other guys that went in round 3 and round 4. They really have to do something to allow some upward momentum for them going into 2026, or where they were drafted doesn't matter. They will not get the benefit of the doubt of, he was a high second, so we're going to go back to him, even though he didn't have a good rookie year. I wanted to ask you this about Keenan Allen. Ladd McConkey's always been banged up, Shane. He's already been banged up in training camp. I actually kind of like playing Keenan Allen through the lens of, would it be crazy if there was a 4 to 6 game stretch in the first half of the season where he produced like what Adam Thielen did a couple years ago, where you're like, dude, he's getting 12 targets a game. Like, I know that's not what you want, but would you be shocked if Keenan Allen was like a top 24 receiver for the first 6 weeks of the season, first 8 weeks of the season?
No, because what was he last year to start the season, or start his season at least?
I mean, and look what he's done with the Chargers in the past. Like he's played with the quarterback. Like he hasn't played in this offense, but he's played with the quarterback. Like if things go haywire, there's a connection already there, which I think is huge. It's not just a veteran going to another place. It is a veteran going back to a quarterback that he's played multiple years with already.
Yeah. I mean, week 1 last year he had 11 targets, and then he was out for a few weeks, and then it was up and down after that. But no, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Just a thought, trying to think through, if you have Keenan Allen on a roster, this is obviously a win. It may not be a win because you can't trade him for anything that outkicks what he could be used for. But I know we have a couple leagues. We showed them the other day on the screen where it was like start 11s, start 12s. I have Keenan Allen. I need to find a way on those teams to either package him in to get something more flexible. So even if I have to sell him for a third, if I really want flexibility, I'll try to do that. But I'm kind of interested in trying to use him early on, Shane. But he's got to be in your lineup. You can't have him as your wide receiver 8 and you're not starting him and he goes out and gets 9 targets in week 1 and he scores 18 points and you go, well, I didn't start him. And then you start him next week and he gets injured. You know what I mean? Like you can ride that roller coaster and you never really got any equity at him. So if you have him on a team, if you can't flip him, you have to figure out what you can actually do with him. How do you get him in your lineup, or at least plan that he's going to give you some early production? Because that's probably what his profile looks like.
I mean, if that happens to happen in week 1, then you can flip him at least.
Hopefully.
You get bailed out.
The key is this isn't the old Dynasty game where as soon as a guy signs, you can immediately flip.
No.
So you have to figure out, how am I going to use a player? The first thing I needed was he signed somewhere. Check. He signed somewhere good. Check. He signed somewhere where there's probably a role available and some production you can expect. Check. All of those things have happened, and it happened before the preseason. So everything has happened now where you need to go figure out whatever move you need to make.
More players, more player news. Do you care about any other players?
I mean, we were going to talk about multiple things, but we spent 27 minutes on the first topic, which was,
of course we did,
Keenan Allen. We put Matt Stafford in there. I'll just keep it brief on Matt Stafford. I'm not worried about the Rams yet, but I don't know if you caught this earlier. At what point do you start getting worried about the Rams? Because Shane, the Rams are one of, I believe, 3 teams that have 3 starting skill players going in the top 30 of redraft. And we just expect them to come out and just smash. Keenan Allen, he's played with Justin Herbert. Davante Adams has never played with Matt Stafford at all. And he's wide receiver 15. At what point do you start getting worried that they're not going to be able to just show up week 1 and feed 3 weapons? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. How are you playing this? Any impact? Keep it to like a minute.
No. I was absolutely not that worried about. I think Stafford and Devonta, just because they're both 30-year-old veterans, like they'll be fine. Like I don't think it'll take much for them to get on the same page. Now with Stafford, even a healthy Stafford could be able to support him and Puka. I mean, that's always been the question. I thought he would, but now what are we going to do with Jimmy G? If McVay is everything that we pump him up to be, then we've got no problems, right? There's a reason a bunch of us picked up Jimmy G in a lot of our leagues just for this situation in case.
Isn't there word Stetson Bennett is pushing Jimmy G for the backup job?
That cannot be true. I don't believe that even a little bit.
Fake news.
And that's got to be AI overview stuff right there. Absolutely no way I believe in that. If that happens, well then we're all doomed. Your Puka shares are ruined. Your Kyron shares are ruined. Your Davante Adams shares are ruined. All of it's done. It's all dust. Isn't
there I have some faith that like Matt Stafford's one goal in life now playing football is to play and try to win. You know what I mean? Like he's not here to, if he can go, he's going. So I'm not as worried if a guy like that is missing reps. I am worried that, Davante Adams is a Hall of Famer. Matt Stafford's probably a Hall of Famer, but they don't just start out week 1 top 12 receiver. You know what I mean? Maybe with Puka, because they've played a couple of years
Yeah,
together.
Puka
But
will be fine.
it's the Adams part that I'm a little worried about. But I'm not as worried until we start getting into like the third week of the preseason. If he still hasn't practiced, then I'm like, okay, we need to see something before we start. Otherwise, you got to start moving those guys now. But that's neither here nor there. I had a couple quick questions for you real quick. What do you do with Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson? I'm not worried about Deontay Johnson. I think he's going to have a role. He's going to be the wide receiver 3. The Browns offense really doesn't have much else. So I'm okay with him seeing what kind of role he has. I'm not promising anything, but he's at least on a team. And from all reports, like, has been fine. So I'm not worried about him. But Amari Cooper, is that just a dead asset?
Yeah, at this point, I think we've got to move on. We talked about it. Me and Diaz talked about it the other day. I think we did. I don't know. Maybe I talked to myself about it. Like, I was this close. It was in the chat, maybe. I was this close to, like, Keenan had another week before he wasn't on my rosters anymore. It was like, all right, bro, this is not happening. So Amari, yeah, he's gone. Look, the fact that Pittsburgh has never came knocking and their wide receiver 2 is Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin or Calvin Austin, Calvin Martin. It doesn't, the fact that not even Pittsburgh, that the Jets, like, who are their wide receiver 2s? Alan Lazard.
Alan Lazard sounds like he's on the cut list. That's the guy that will go to the Steelers. He can't make the Jets, but he'll go to the Steelers.
Robert Woods, wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh. I loved Robert Woods. I wrote a great story about him back in 2019 when he was good.
So with Amari, I mean,
yeah, you can go.
Is there anything that you can envision? And this is where I kind of want to get the crowd to engage. If anything were to happen that you could envision Amari Cooper being even in Keenan Allen's position right now, where at least you could tell yourself a story where early on he could play. I saw this comment in here. The Vikings could be one where he could play right away, Shane, without Addison and Jefferson with this hamstring injury. Like,
there's multiple places that's true, though. Again, I literally just named 2. There's Pittsburgh and there's the New York Jets. He walks in tomorrow on any of these teams. He's legitimately the wide receiver 2 on either of those offenses all year. In Minnesota,
well, how long do you wait? I mean, you don't have to cut down most rosters until like end of the August month. How long do you wait before you want to pick up? Because there's going to be players that you're going to want to pick up in the next couple weeks, right? Big preseason game, talk of the town. What do you do? When do you cut him for Jordan Watkins or this random 4th string running back that had some highlights in the preseason?
Yeah, so I don't need the roster space to cut him. Quite honest with you, I'm not going to just pick up another Efton Chisholm, whatever his name is, or Karate Mumford, whatever that guy's name was. I'm not going to do that.
Who were your most recent big pickups where you picked up in mass? I had a couple that I've ran today. I now have 13 shares of D'Ernest Johnson and about 8 shares of Teddy Bridgewater, who apparently is immediately the back. This is how fast, I know I'm going off tangent a little bit. This is how fast the backup quarterbacks can change, Shane. Teddy Bridgewater was on the street, and then he was on the Lions, and then he was back on the street, and then he had that whole controversy where he was like paying for kids' benefits at his high school program or whatever. Now he's probably the backup for the Buccaneers, who's probably like a top 5 passing offense. It's like, if he got in there, you'd be like, well, he has a lot of weapons. You know what I mean?
He does. But
I'm just saying, he's from overnight. He went from the retired list basically to like probably a top 10, 12 backup.
Maybe the bottom of that top 10, 12. Sure. I mean, the situation is good. It definitely is good.
That's all you need. A competent quarterback with starting history that goes into a situation that has basically just been fruitful. You know what I mean?
Just for fun, what do you think Teddy Bridgewater's best season, fantasy season, where he finished as QB what? Points per game. Best
21?
Season. Close. Quarterback 19. That was his best season. That was his halcyon peaks. Good old Teddy. Good old
Teddy. I mean, those are the type of guys that pop out of nowhere that you're like, I would cut either of Amari Cooper or insert up for a player that's on a team. You know what I mean? Like Dearness Johnson, he signed with the Ravens. They don't have a running back 2 that looks like that. And so does he ever get in there? Probably not. But that's been a situation where if you're on their 53-man roster, we've seen crazier things happen,
Dropping Hendon Hooker for Teddy. Hendon Hooker is losing that backup battle.
All the same arguments you would make for Hendon Hooker, you'd make for Teddy Bridgewater. Do they have weapons? Yes. Do they have an offense that is fruitful around the quarterback? Yes. And which one has started games and at least done something before? It's Teddy Bridgewater. So I don't hate it. I mean, I dropped some backup quarterbacks for him. We've heard nothing but negative from the Texans camp, right? So I'm not excited to have Davis Mills. If CJ Stroud can't do anything, then I'm not sure if Davis Mills is the backup that you want to ride. So that's one that I've cut for him. I mean, yeah, these things change fast. Is he ahead of Trask, Shane? The only highlight of Trask I've seen is that one where he throws it like 8 feet behind the receiver. Did you see that one?
No, was this recently?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they let him throw the football, to be quite honest with you. I thought
it was one where it was like Kyle Trask out here doing something, and it was just like he missed the throw by like 8 yards. That's all I've seen on Kyle Trask.
I thought his position on the team was more honorary than anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like those doctorates they give out when you give a speech at a college. I thought that's kind of like his deal. Like he's an honorary backup.
Here was one, Shane. Trey Lance.
He was rostered in most of the leagues, but I was able to grab him in two leagues. So got him in a couple leagues.
What's the plan for a guy like Trey Lance?
Pray that he gets in there and then move him for anything someone wants to give me.
Well, we're already going off the rails, so I might as well ask your opinion on another thing that's happening, Shane. Tyler Shuck, not guaranteed to be the starter. How we feeling? You've been Mr. Shuck. Rattlers trash. I mean, they're both probably trash.
Yeah, but you know what?
Feel of Tyler Shuck is he is going to start, and then what if he doesn't?
Tyler Shuck is losing that battle from literally every report you get. Any podcast you listen to, any NFL podcast you listen to, when they talk about the Saints, it's about how Spencer Rattler is winning that job. That's all I need to know. Like Tyler Shuck can't beat out Spencer Rattler. I'm likely going to cut Tyler Shuck because that's just atrocious. I'm not drafting either of them. Like I
was going to say, I'm pretty sure you're not going to answer no to that question, but you're also going to go, I don't want to draft Tyler Shuck now either, right?
Yeah. No, I probably am not drafting either. And if I am, it's way, way late in the draft. But I mean, how can you, in a startup legitimately, how could you not take Rattler over Shuck? Because right now he's the one that looks like he's going to be the starter.
So startup questions. This was the second part of our show that we were going to talk about after Jimmy G, Keenan Allen, all of that kind of stuff. But rookies and startup, Shane. If you were going to do a startup now, because I know you did some during rookie draft season, you did some even before the draft and probably took rookie picks. But now if you're doing the startup, how are you looking at this rookie class? Obviously, it depends on how you're building your team. But how are you looking at rookies in a startup right now? Is it still the same lens, or are you more influenced by the early camp buzz, the early opportunity potential? Like it feels like a lot more startup teams today get built a little bit differently than they might have in February, March, April, even May, June, right after the rookie draft. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when it's May, April even, but more likely May, you have higher hopes for these rookies. They're going to come in, they're going to take a job right off the bat. Like it's just their job. Then, you look up in training camp and Cam Scattaboo's behind Devin Singletary. RJ Harvey is apparently the RB6 on the Denver Broncos depth chart.
He's RB7 now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they've demoted him again since.
So, I mean, just based on that, he shouldn't even make the roster. Like those dudes don't even make taxi squads. Like, but I mean, it's the reality starts to set in. Like these are probably not going to be guys that I can count on as legit starters, right? Like obviously Omarion Hampton and Genty, that's different, right? Even Hendo. It's a little different. Judkins, if he would have ever signed and not done the things that he done, probably it would be somebody I'd feel a little more comfortable with. But I'd probably veer towards veterans, and veterans could just be, second year guys, as opposed to the hope and the eternal optimism that you have in May in a startup about what these rookies are going to be. When you're drafting Mason Taylor and you go, no problem, he's going to be the starter, which he actually was in line for until he hurt his ankle. But in general, like the reality is setting in now that a lot of these guys aren't going to come in and just take people's jobs and be an impact player from day one.
Doesn't it feel, though, that there's a little bit of like a push and pull with that, too? Because there's been a lot of rookies that have had a lot of positive buzz.
Yeah, so but it's now like ones I'd expect.
Well, no, but you'd have to probably pay more now today for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt or Taj Brooks or Harold Fannin, or you know what I mean? There's a lot of rookies where they've kind of cemented themselves in people's eyes. Elijah Arroyo, like they've cemented themselves in people's eyes as they're a little more desirable now just because they're in the news. There hasn't been anything negative on them. And so it feels like those are the sucker plays if you're doing a startup right now, because you're still betting on longer shot profiles, you know what I mean? But you just don't have a reason to penalize them. So people are much more likely to go, you know what? I don't really like what's on the board here because all it is some empty production that I don't see any value to. There's no shine or there's no sexiness. So instead, I'm just going to reach and I'm going to take this rookie. So it feels like there's a lot of rookies that you could get dirt cheap because there's been no positive buzz, or there's been a minor injury, or there's been something where people are just down on that player now. And then you have to pay more for other rookies that their profiles aren't any different. The draft capital and investment is no different than it was 3 months ago, but just you're paying for what's trending up and you're getting a discount on what's trending down. So it feels like if you're willing to still lean into some of the draft evaluation, that it's still profitable to take some rookies, Shane. There's still going to be some rookies that come out of nowhere, and we're talking middle of the season, people are trying to flip them for first. They just haven't been on the radar yet. Read this. You put it up there.
Chip Diamonds. If you were tapped in, you knew about all these late round running backs for months and you scooped them up all off of waivers after rookie drafts. I will say this. I picked up a bunch of Bill McCroskey-Merritts. I picked up a lot of Taj Brooks. That he likes Bill, dude. I don't know the story behind it, but I think the name just being super plain is probably what it is. Anyway, but yeah, I picked up a bunch of him. I picked up a bunch of Taj Brooks, but I also picked up other running backs that got like a little buzz and then immediately cut them because they got no real buzz.
Yeah, and I think running backs are almost excluded from this equation in rookie drafts because I already drafted a ton. I drafted all running backs anyway. You know what I mean? Like rarely was there a running back that just wasn't added or wasn't picked up, just because most of our processes, I think if you follow a lot of how I've roster constructed and the NERB on a 53, like round 3, round 4, you're taking running backs. And then that very first waiver run, you're going through and going, which guys didn't get picked up, and I'm putting a claim in on them. So, guys like Damian Martinez, that they're not picked up. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, they're all getting picked up right away. So I think gone are those days, at least in moderately deep or deep leagues, to where any of those running backs are even out there. Now, there are some running backs that are still out there. There's going to be one or two of these guys that is kind of an unknown rookie that comes out and does something in the preseason that all of a sudden you're squinting and going, maybe that's an RB on a 53. Some that we've never even talked about on the channel. But for the most part, rookies are picked through. But there's a lot of players at tight end and at receiver that, like you already mentioned, Kanata Mudfield and Jordan Watkins. Like those are the types that sometimes can have nobody on them, and then all of a sudden they're on the radar. And you have a really limited window to do anything with them. But you got to pick them up, and then you got to hope for something in the preseason. So we're going off tangent, but I thought it was an interesting conversation.
No, this is part of startup talk, right? The rookies that you take in startups.
So how do you treat having a limited window of time to do stuff between now and the start of the season in a startup? Meaning, let's say we did a startup today and it ended next week. Doesn't feel like there's going to be a massive market movement in the next 3 weeks, even though there's preseason and there's things that move. Like, what do you do if you do have a startup and you're doing a startup sometime in August? like you probably have to expect things are going to be pretty close to the vest for that first season, right? Like people are already dug in. There's not going to be 3 teams gutting their roster by week 2 because they've all built a specific way. So how do you play it differently when you're doing one today versus in like February?
I mean, no one's going to like this, but like I am going to build more towards a eye of what my starting lineup is going to be. And I know no one ever likes that. Like every draft I hear is like, don't draft for your starting lineup ever. So draft.
But people do it though. Like they don't like it, but
draft 47 quarterbacks. Just think about value, and you're like, okay, that's great because I'm definitely going to be able to move all these players to build a legitimate starting roster in 3 months. But no, I mean, I'm going to look week 1. Do I have legitimate starters? And does that mean I'm going to jump 4 rounds to get a tight end when I need one? No. But all things being equal, where I probably would take a younger wide receiver in a spot. If I'm trying to fill the position and the players are fairly even, I'll probably break the other way.
Do you draft players to flip? Less so today than you might have in February or March?
Yeah, not as much, right? So that's like my auction strategy is always like that. The auction strategy, I never draft to build a team. It's literally like I'm just building, drafting things to move them. But startups are kind of similar, right? You end up out of a startup and you're like, oh, I have 4 first-round draft picks. What am I going to be able to do with these? I bet you I'll be able to use some of these before the season to add players to my roster and compete this year. At least that's how I think. You can't really do that now with 20 days, 30 days, not even 30 days, 25 days until the season. And you don't even have enough time. So here's the other thing. You draft in May. Everyone drafts in May. Multiple people like their team. You have 3 months to realize that your team is ass. 4 months, that it's not as good as you thought. You don't have that same amount of time in August, right? So there's less of a chance that the people that drafted their teams in that league, unless they were purposely building for productive struggle, like 270 videos mentioned in there, that are going to look at their rosters and go, oh, I hate this team. Most people are going to think they did at least a decent job in the startup draft.
Well, and if you draft, let's say you did a startup after the season, but it was before the NFL draft, before free agency, like you basically just had a league that was already a year old, right? Because if you're just doing the startup in February, you have all of these calendar events, the combine, which influences rookie pick values, free agency, which impacts multiple veterans. Then you have the NFL draft, which shakes everything up. Then you have OTAs and mini camps, and then you have training camps, and then you have preseason. Like you have so many events that will change the scope of how you view your team, how other people view your players, how you maybe view the trajectory of your team versus the rest of the league. You have a lot more built-in, just natural, I think I'm here, but by the time we get to August, I'm either here or here. It can be at the top or at the bottom. Maybe you're still stuck in the middle, but you have we have a wider range of outcomes for your positioning of your team when you drafted 6 months ago. If you do a startup today, it kind of feels like, not that you have to draft like a redraft, because I saw a comment in here that I wanted to put up. 270 videos said, this is the best time to do a productive struggle because you're more likely to run into people that are going, oh man, I can't pass up that James Conner or Alvin Kamara. I'd rather have them over Trey Harris, right? But Trey Harris has, if everything we talked about at the beginning of the show isn't true for Trey Harris and he's just better than Keenan Allen from day one, he could be worth a first at the end of the season. You know what I mean? You'd never have that potential with many players that would be drafted over him in a startup, and you have more people likely to go, you know what? Like Shane just said, I'm probably more likely to click Alvin Kamara and James Conner than a guy like Trey Harris today. You might not have done that in June, in May. So there's probably some merit to kind of going against what the rest of the room is going to do. And if the rest of the room is more likely to go win now, redraft mentality, only care about, I still want to get some foundation pieces, but I can basically go after round 4 or 5 of the startup, I'm just shooting for as many points as I can. That's probably the time to really lean into punting the season, Shane.
Yeah.
How do you spot if your room is doing that? Like you may say, I'm doing a startup tomorrow and that's going to be my plan. But then what do you do if you realize, like, have you ever been in a startup where you really want to trade back? And we'll get to your trade back comment because I want to talk about that. You want to trade back, but then 3 people get the trade back deals that you wanted to get first. they do the trade back in the startup and pick up an extra first, and it's already been done by like 3 different teams. What do you do then? Do you just sit? Because the worst thing you can do when there's already been 2 or 3 big moves is just sit and play it up the middle and make all your picks.
Well, no, I was going to say, if anything, that's going to make me more aggressive to get it done. Like, guys, we have a, what's the word I'm looking for? A market price has been set. Can I get anyone else to buy? Like, I'm not asking for out of the ordinary. I'm literally asking for market value. So let me try that. You know, I'd probably be even more aggressive, though. I'm not aggressive during a startup anyway.
So chat, let's talk about this, because Shane posed this question. This was the thing Shane wanted to talk about. Does trading up still make sense? What do you think? To you, does it make sense in today's landscape, knowing that people might have different tendencies in startups today? What do you think? Are you willing to trade up? And define what you mean by trading up. Because I know you'd trade up, but when I say, Shane, you got to add a 26 first to your second round startup pick to get another first round startup pick. Are you doing it?
Right. Exactly. Like, if I can move
a big trade up
to, let's say, 205 and a first to get like the 108, is that something that you're still doing today?
Instead of drafting Drake London, you're adding a first to draft Malik Neighbors.
Right. I guess.
Or maybe let's go cross positional. You're adding a first to draft Brock Bowers. Like, receiver for receiver is a tough sell. I'd probably take Drake London in a first for Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, I'm looking at some ADP. So I'm looking
at what do you got?
So say the 210 and the 26 first.
Who's the 210 with what you're looking at?
I'll tell you after I tell you who what you're getting for the 109. 210 and a 26 first for the 109.
Ooh,
strictly based off ADP. I'm not.
That's probably very. That's probably very. I think I would say I would do it if it's the right players, but probably without knowing the players. There's a chance I get caught on a same position deal that I would never actually do. So I'm going to pass.
You're going to pass.
That's not how I'm using my first.
And 270 ask tight end premium. Yes. So keep it down. Sorry.
The only one that can hear his kids is Shane.
Driving me nuts, man. Anyway, so the 210 is Nico Collins. The 109 is Bijan Robinson. So that means you would have given up Nico Collins and a 26 first for Bijan Robinson.
And you're not doing that.
No.
Correct?
No.
Now, if you wins give me a quarterback that's in the second round.
Oh,
is Herbert in the late second? Caleb in the late second?
Yes.
Would you add a first to Caleb Williams to get Jalen Hurts?
Yes.
See, and all you did is probably shift those picks like 4 slots both directions, and the trade is there, right?
Jalen Hurts is 106, Caleb 208.
So literally you swapped 5 slots on the startup, and the same deal you would decline or reject. You would not trade back.
Right. Yeah. So I guess part of it though is the positional part of it, right? 100%. So I'm getting one of the few elite quarterbacks. I think that's something. I don't know if anyone remembers when we thought there was more elite quarterbacks than there were, but we've come to the realization there's not. There's like 5 elite quarterbacks. So if you get a chance to get to those, then it's probably still worth it, right? But like, are you giving up a 26 first and Nico Collins to get to Malik Neighbors? Because that's kind of another option based off the ADP.
I mean, here's a similar trade right here. Traded 208 and 405. Who's the 405? Because I would bet the 405 is a player that you could not buy for a random first. But that's the exact scenario we were giving, except for you getting Chase and Jefferson.
JT, Jonathan Taylor.
So Jonathan Taylor, and who's the 208? It's probably a quarterback, right?
208. That was Caleb.
So Caleb and Jonathan Taylor for Jamar Chase. You would do that trade, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, it's not just a slam dunk, like, you know what I mean? It's not like,
but isn't it interesting that you would do that trade, but you wouldn't necessarily want to do Nico Collins in a first for Jamar Chase? That wouldn't be because it's the same position, right?
Right.
Like the position leverage really matters when you're doing these types of deals. It really does. As soon as you insert cross positional, and you go, man, I really don't want to give up Nico Collins in a first, but I'm getting Jalen Hurts. You're like,
Right.
okay, I'll do it.
Yep.
Interesting. Would have to be an extremely shallow league for me to want to do the non-QB tier up. I agree with that. I'm not saying Malik Neighbors isn't better than Nico Collins or Drake London, but that's not how I want to use my one first rounder to go from a top 12 receiver to a top 6 receiver. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't feel like that's what I want to do.
Right. So it's like just imagine that pick's top 4. So this year that would have been what, like Trey Henderson. So Trey Henderson and Nico Collins for Jamar Chase. I don't know, man. I don't know about that. Chip Diamonds. I'd rather be aggressive and actively try to trade future first for a top 6 round startup pick rather than trading up.
So he's saying basically just trade a first for the 602 and you just pick whoever you want.
I like that better, except I wouldn't go that deep. I don't think I'm going past. Let me just look at the players here. Yeah, I'm not going past the 4th round to give up a first, but I get it. I do like that better, right? Because then I'm not wasting is not the word I'm looking for, but I'm not using one of my other picks to get another pick. I'm just literally adding another pick to another early round pick to my cash.
So humor me. Who is the 602 on your list right now?
602. Bear with me. My contacts are bothering me. Zay Flowers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where's you don't have your list. We don't have time to go up and look at the list specifically. Where would be the cutoff point where if somebody sent you a future first for that range of player, what would be the cutoff? Because I think it used to be like a 6th or 7th rounder, but you start going through the players and you're even into the 4th round, which is like Jonathan Taylor. You said he's the 405. Like you're not just spamming and getting a first plus for Jonathan Taylor at every league. Like some leagues you might only get a single first, maybe.
Yeah.
So like it seems like that line is higher now because that's people understanding Dynasty being much more of a boomer bust, like studs and duds, and they'd much rather have flexibility rather than kind of dead zone, good but not great players like Zay Flowers. We talked about that last night on the AMA. Ray does an AMA on Tuesday night in the Discord. So if you're not in there and you're interested in that, usually one of us jumps on or he just takes questions like this. And we were talking about that. Like, is that a blind spot for people right now when they're building teams, Shane, where you're getting close to setting your lineup and you go to your lineup and you hit submit and you're starting Jalen Waddle, Calvin Ridley, and Zay Flowers. Those guys feel pretty good, right? They feel good. Like in a start 11, they're locked in starters. They're not great, but you kind of know what you get for them or from them. But aren't those the type of players you should just be liquidating and being willing to like Calvin Ridley is the guy that you sell for a second, maybe a second and a third. And then you know who you put in his place? Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
And you just bet that Keenan Allen can match Calvin Ridley for the first 6 weeks of the year. And you know that's probably a roster spot that is going to need some turnover over the next year, 2, 3 years. Because it's not like Calvin Ridley is going to fill that spot for 4 years. But like one you could sell, one you couldn't. If you're willing to sell a younger guy, like can you sell Zay Flowers for a first and just slide in someone random that's probably not as good, doesn't have the same floor, but that's not a spot to be arrogant enough to not be willing to trade him if you can get a flexible first.
Yeah, absolutely not.
All right. We got 2 minutes left.
One last question.
Yeah, put that one up there. I was going to put it
Jeffrey
up there too.
Jacobs had a few questions, but this one's germane to the conversation, so we brought it up. Hey guys, thanks for being the best in the business with actionable advice. That's our whole thing. That's like our shtick. Startup rebuild question. Besides the rookie running backs from this season, what other top tier dynasty running backs are worth investing in? Okay, you ready for the complete list? Besides the rookie running backs from this year, there is Bijan Robinson.
I have 5 fingers.
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
Devon Chain.
Ooh, that's not, I don't know about that one for everybody, but
well, here's the thing. I can get him cheaper. I wouldn't have to invest so highly, but I would because he's a stud. I'm saying I would get him in the second round and be happy with it. Who am I forgetting?
Bijan, Gibbs, HN, excluding rookies, which is really probably only Genty and Hampton.
Yeah.
So that's 5. Honestly, I can see one other rookie running back, whether it's Henderson or Harvey or probably not Judkins at this point, jumping into that mix, but I can't see another veteran. There's other veterans that are good. Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Kenneth Walker, but they're already at the point where they have just a little bit of I don't even want to say a ding, because there's nothing Bucky Irving's done that's been negative.
No.
But because he didn't start where Jahmyr Gibbs or Bijan did, he feels more fragile. You know what I mean? Which is a fair assessment. Like, he's a lower round draft pick and he already feels more fragile, and that's not an accident. That is correct. Because I think he does have less of a floor in terms of what you could sell him for. Doesn't mean he can't be good. He's probably going to be good for years. But that doesn't mean if he's not great this year that he's anything more than, I don't know, sitting where like Kenneth Walker sits, right? I like Kenneth Walker when he's RB15, not when he's RB4. So,
yeah, it's a very small list, But look, it is a list. And 2 years ago, I wouldn't even had a list. So things change.
Well, 2 years ago, Breece Hall was on the list. 2 years ago, Jonathan Taylor was on the list.
But I wouldn't have cared. I would have just told you, I don't care. Move them all anyway.
Yep.
Move them all anyway, you know. But
and I think that's something we can close it on. That's something to ponder. Is running backs are kind of changing in terms of, obviously we've seen more committees, we've seen more platoons, we've seen more specialists that, you know, there's usually another running back on most teams that do something a little different and better than the starter, right? In a lot of cases. But I also think that might mean we end up seeing a lot of these running back careers with longer tails than we did before. And I wonder how long it's going to take the Dynasty community to kind of catch up to that strategy. Meaning the typical Chase Brown profile, we're expecting by 2026 that he's dead. But Shane, what if he just has like a 7-year career where he's pretty good? And in year 4, we've already dumped him because there's no way he can be good for 7 years. And then he is good for 3 or 4 more years when everyone's already given up on him or deemed him only worth a late second. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like we're going to get a lot more of those where the back end of their careers, you can get more bang for your buck production than what you could ever sell for. So, all right. Well, that is it for Manic and Chill. This was a fun episode. We actually did get to our 3 points.
We did.
Next week, maybe we'll do an actual startup exercise, go through and like actually make some picks, build a team, do something more creative than just talking. But it's good for us to get back. We've only done a couple shows where we can just talk to each other like this. If you want more of us, Dynasty Deal Show Friday nights, 9:00. Myself, Shane, Ty, $3.99 a month, members only. You get that. You get Destination Chill. You're going to get a Trinity show with Ray and I every Tuesday night during the season. So we're going to go through actionable Trinity advice where we go through the Trinity tool and talk about moves we can make. Literally, can I trade Zay Flowers and put in Keenan Allen because of his usage? That's going to be the type of show that we're going to do. So that's going to be a members only show during the season. Well, we're still deciding if it's going to be all members only or not, but check it out. And then Destination Chill will be back on Sunday. And then also join the Discord where you'll get more the morning drive with Shane every Friday, where he fights through traffic, yells at other drivers, and talks Dynasty at the same time.
Absolutely never yell at anyone.
It's Shane, so you never know what you're going to get. But yeah, you get that inside the Discord, plus much, much more. Thank you for being here. Until next week, we are out.